In this video, we're going to look at 5 Sony a6000 settings you need to know. Hello, my name is Aaron, and in this video we're going to look at settings that you need to know for the Sony a6000. Sony a6000 is a camera that is a good few years old now. I think it came out in 2014. However, I've only been using it since the start of this year. That means for the last few months, I've been using the Sony a6000 and working out what settings work best. And these are what I'm going to share with you today. Before we get to the settings, if you haven't seen any of my videos before, I make videos about lots of tips and tricks for Sony E-mount cameras. So if that sounds interesting to you, please consider subscribing to the channel and dropping a like on the video. So my first setting is a pretty straightforward one, but I think it's one getting used to and getting used to how it works, which is the quick function menu. Now, if you press the FN button on the back of the camera, this loads up the quick function menu. And on this menu, it'll automatically come with settings such as your drive mode, flash mode, flash compensator, focus mode, focus area, exposure compensator, creative style, as well as a whole bunch of other settings. What I find so useful about the quick function menu is, of course, all these other settings are available in the menu, but you'll find yourself having to memorize menu positions and having to do a lot of scrolling through different menus to get to quite a lot of the common settings. This is what you have to do with cameras such as the A5100, for example, which doesn't have a quick function menu. So this is just a really handy quick menu to set up all the most common functions that you use. Now, if the functions on the quick menu aren't the ones you use the most, you can customize this, which makes it even more useful. To customize the quick function menu, navigate to Custom Settings, and then tab 6, then Function Menu Settings. And again, you access the quick function menu by pressing the FN button on the back of the camera. So the next setting I'm going to talk about is another default button on the back of the camera, which is AEL. You can see the button here, and AEL stands for Auto Exposure Lock. And the best way to describe what AEL Auto Exposure Lock does is to show an example of auto exposure working as normal. So you can see here, if I dip the camera from a very dark scene to a very bright scene, the exposure of the camera will automatically change, so the highlights aren't too blown out and the darks aren't too dark. This is the camera auto-adjusting the exposure based on the current brightness of your shot. This is taking into consideration the amount of light being let into the sensor and automatically changing the exposure based on this. Usually you don't mind about auto exposure because most of the time it's doing the work for you, and changing exposure on the fly isn't that quick. However, the AEL button lets you lock the exposure if the camera isn't coming up with the right exposure automatically, or if there's something in particular you want to do with the exposure, you can do it quickly with the AEL button. Say you wanted the exposure from a brighter scene and to take that indoors, for example, you press and hold the AEL button until you see the little star symbol on the bottom of the screen. Then keep the AEL button held down until you take your shot, and the exposure is locked from when you started to hold the button. I find AEL Auto Exposure Lock a handy little setting, and it gives you a lot more control over your photography. And when I first got the Sony a6000, I thought, what is this AEL button? And well, now we know. Now, the third tip I'm going to talk about is called the Finder Monitor Settings. Now, that doesn't really describe exactly what this does, but it's quite a simple little setting, which is, of course, the Sony a6000 has an EVF electronic viewfinder and a screen which you can monitor your shots from. What's handy about this camera is that the camera automatically switches between these two viewing modes based on a sensor that when you put your face up to the EVF, that it switches to that to view from and turns the screen off. However, I find this sensor, maybe it's just on my Sony a6000, is, well, extremely sensitive, which means that if I'm using the screen exclusively to monitor, that the slightest touch will turn it off for a few seconds, meaning that I can't monitor through the screen until it realizes that I am in fact not using the EVF. I find this extra annoying as I usually like to leave the strap on the camera, even if I'm not currently using the strap, which means that the strap often is just waving around a bit behind the camera and will sometimes come into contact with that sensor, and again will turn the screen off, meaning that I can't monitor my shots for a few seconds. I found this really frustrating to start with until I realised that you can turn this setting on and off. Or rather, you can set your viewing mode to just screen or just EVF based on your situation. Now, sometimes, of course, you are swapping between these two, and so you would turn this off so that it still automatically switches between two. But a lot of the time, I'm only monitoring with the EVF or only monitoring with the monitor. So to change the Finder monitor settings, you go to Custom Settings, and then tab 3, you can see Finder Monitor. The fourth setting I'm going to talk about is another nice little feature and something also you may have seen on the camera's body and been slightly confused about what it means. On the shoot mode wheel, there is an MR selection. MR stands for Memory Recall. What this means is that you can have different setups for your shooting styles saved to 3 different presets, meaning that you can swap between them quickly without having to change all the settings independently. For example, if you like a certain set of settings for wildlife photography, for example, with a quick shutter speed, instead of having to jump into the menu every time and go to shutter priority and then choose your favorites and then what other little exposure settings that you might like to change, you can just have these quickly saved on one of 3 tabs. You can have one for wildlife, you can have one for portraits, and you could have one for landscapes, for example, which you could quickly switch between. So here's an example of how to set up one of these presets. The first thing you need to do is choose the settings that you want for your preset. So let's set up a quick shutter priority preset, which you could use for something like wildlife. So go to shutter priority mode, and I'm going to set it to, say, 1/1000 shutter speed with automatic ISO, and high shutter shooting mode, which takes multiple shots per second. Then go to camera settings, tab 7, and then memory. Then press the middle button on either tab 1, 2, or 3, whichever you want to replace with your current settings. Then your preset profile will be saved. Then to use those presets, go to the memory recall mode, and then you'll see your options 1, 2, and 3 available to choose quickly. So a really handy little setting to get your head around, as it helps you quickly change your settings without too much messing around. So the last setting I'm going to talk about today is turning on and off the audio signals. The audio signals are these little beeps like this, and like this that you get, say, when the camera is taking a photo or autofocusing, and they can be quite useful, I suppose, when you're first starting to get to use the camera, to know that the camera is still autofocusing when you half press the shutter, for example, or an extra audio signal that it's definitely taken a photo or the video has started to record or stopped recording, things like that. I can definitely see their use, but most of the time they're a bit distracting. Say you're trying to take photos of family and you want to get a nice kind of candid shot of people having fun, that extra noise is going to put them off and maybe turn to the camera and be a bit more self-conscious. I like it for the camera to be as quiet as possible if you can. Now, you can't turn off the shutter sound completely with the Sony a6000, but what you can do is turn off these audio signals, which makes the camera a bit quieter, because if you're taking lots of shots in quick succession, the audio signals can get quite annoying, I find anyway. So quite an easy setting to turn on and off. Just go to Setup and then Audio Signals. So that's all the settings that I've got for you today. Just a few settings that I thought were worth knowing for the Sony a6000 camera. If you're interested in picking up one of these cameras, I'll leave an affiliate link in the description below. Also, are there any settings that you use for the Sony a6000 which I haven't mentioned? Let me know in the comments. As always, if you've enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing to the channel and dropping a like on the video. And if you want to check out any of my photography from the a6000, you can find it on Instagram at aaron.prescott. But that's it from me for now. Until next time, see ya.